Once upon a quiet evening, in a small, peaceful village tucked between rolling green hills and silver streams, there lived a little boy named Ethan Walker. He was the only child of Richard and Clara Walker, the wealthiest family the village had ever known. The Walkers were kind and generous. They owned vast lands, fruit orchards, and a mansion that shimmered under the morning sun. But more than their riches, they were loved for their hearts. Every Christmas, Clara baked for the entire village. Every spring, Richard paid school fees for children whose parents could not afford them. And Ethan, their only son, was the heart of their joy. He was gentle, bright-eyed, and endlessly curious about the world. He would sit by the lake with his sketchbook, drawing birds and trees, asking his mother questions about the stars, and dreaming of becoming someone who helped people. But life, as it often does, had plans that no one could see coming. One night, a terrible storm swept through the village. Thunder shook the hills. Lightning flashed across the sky like broken glass. Ethan huddled in his room, clutching his blanket as the winds howled through the trees. His parents had gone to the city that morning to finalize a deal that would bring a new hospital to the village. They promised they'd be back by nightfall, but they never came home. By dawn, word spread through the village. A car accident on the bridge. The storm had taken more than the night. It had taken Richard and Clara Walker. Ethan was just 7 years old, too young to understand the depth of loss, yet old enough to feel the empty silence that now filled his home. The court assigned him to his nearest relative, Aunt Maggie, his late father's younger sister. She was a woman with eyes as sharp as winter and a smile that never quite reached her heart. She arrived at the mansion in a black dress, her steps echoing on the marble floor. Everyone thought she had come to care for the boy, but in truth, Aunt Maggie came for something else, the fortune. She moved in quickly, dismissed most of the servants, and locked up Richard and Clara's study. She told Ethan he was too young to understand adult things. Days turned into weeks. The boy who once laughed in gardens now swept the floors he used to run across. His meals grew smaller, his bed colder. Aunt Maggie sold the family horses, the cars, even the orchard, and soon, Ethan's laughter faded like a song no one sang anymore. Years passed. The mansion aged with him, once filled with light, now covered in dust and silence. Aunt Maggie drank more, smiled less, and shouted often. She accused Ethan of being ungrateful, lazy, even cursed. At 12, Ethan stopped going to school. His clothes were hand-me-downs. His shoes had holes. He began working odd jobs in the village, fixing fences, carrying wood, just to buy himself bread. And one day, when the last of his father's lands were sold, Aunt Maggie packed her bags, leaving him with only a small bag of clothes and a cracked photo frame of his parents. She disappeared without a word. Ethan Walker, once the prince of the village, was now just a poor orphan boy with no home, no family, and no name that mattered. He wandered for years, sleeping under trees, helping farmers for coins, walking from one town to another. But deep inside, he carried something Aunt Maggie could never take, the memory of kindness. He remembered how his parents helped others, how they smiled even when tired, and how his mother said, "Real wealth is what you give, not what you keep." Those words became his compass. When he was 16, Ethan reached a distant city. It was vast and cold, filled with strangers who moved too fast to notice a hungry boy. But he worked, washing dishes, delivering letters, repairing anything he could. He was poor, but he was learning. Every night before sleeping, he whispered to himself, "Someday, I'll go back home. Someday I'll make it right." One winter morning, while working in a mechanic's shop, Ethan saw something that would change his life. A small girl was crying near a broken bicycle. She had scraped her knee, and people just walked past her. Ethan knelt down, helped her up, and fixed her bike for free. The girl's father, a man in a suit, watched quietly. He introduced himself, Mr. Brooks, a local engineer. Impressed by Ethan's skill and kindness, he offered him an apprenticeship. Under Mr. Brooks' guidance, Ethan studied engineering. He was quick to learn, creative, patient, and humble. By 20, he designed machines that helped local farmers increase their harvest. He saved money, built connections, and started a small company that provided affordable tools for rural workers. He called it Walker Works. A decade after his parents' death, Ethan returned to his village, but it was not the place he remembered. The fields were dry, the river polluted, the people weary. The new mayor, a greedy man named Victor Kane, had taken control of the land, exploiting workers, raising taxes, and silencing anyone who spoke up. Ethan's heart ached. He walked past the ruins of his old home. Broken windows, weeds growing through the steps. He knelt and whispered, "I'm back, Mom, Dad. I'm home." Soon, the villagers rallied behind him. Together, they rebuilt the fields, planted new crops, and restored the water system. Ethan used his engineering skills to design irrigation lines that turned barren soil into fertile land. The mayor grew angry. He tried to stop him, but the people stood by Ethan. They remembered how his parents once gave them hope, and now their son was doing the same. When Mayor Kane tried to have him arrested on false charges, the villagers filled the square in protest. Their voices rose as one. That night, Kane fled the village, and by dawn, Ethan Walker, the boy who had once been abandoned, became the symbol of a new beginning. Ethan restored his family home, not as a mansion, but as a community center. He built a school, a clinic, and a workshop where young people learned new skills. Every evening, children gathered around him as he told stories about courage, loss, and hope. And when asked how he forgave those who wronged him, Ethan would smile softly and say, "Because bitterness doesn't build bridges. Only love does." Years later, under the same stars his mother once showed him, Ethan stood by the lake, older, wiser, and surrounded by the laughter of children. He whispered, "Mom, Dad, I kept my promise." The moon shimmered on the water like silver dust, and the wind carried his parents' love back to him, gentle, eternal, and proud. And so, in that small village once forgotten, the story of Ethan Walker, the boy who lost everything but found his purpose, became a legend told to children at bedtime, a story about hope, forgiveness, and the kind of strength that no storm can ever take away. And so, my dear listener, when the world feels unfair and life takes more than it gives, remember Ethan. Remember that sometimes losing everything is how we discover who we really are. And sometimes, the smallest light can bring dawn to an entire village.